Welcome, Pitt fans, to another episode of Talking College Football with JJ Kitchen. Of course, I'm your host, JJ Kitchen. Guys, we're going to get into it today. Plenty of stuff to talk about in terms of what this team has looked like, in terms of how bad the embarrassing loss to Wake Forest was. But, guys, when I watched it a second time, it was pretty bad. But before we get into it, guys, please, again, subscribe to the channel down below to get the notifications when we go live. Today's going to be a hell of a topic in terms of things that we talk about, things that will be changing moving forward. But, of course, subscribe to the channel, like it, dislike it, share it with your friends. We're going to have people on tonight and also answering questions along with the ideas and solutions that I have. So, guys, of course, as always, cue the countdown. Welcome to another episode of Talking College Football with JJ Kitchen. Guys, again, welcome. And before we hop on to the discussions here, obviously the questions are already coming in. That's always good to see. The biggest thing I want to talk about first here is this show is sponsored by Colonial Beer. Guys, obviously the fake slide, Alliance 412, which is the preferred collective of the University of Pittsburgh. Colonial Beer, a place over at 4986 Library Road in Bethel Park. If you're looking to get the fake slide Pilsner, me personally, this is where I go. A sponsor of the show, run by Pittmen. Good people, good individuals are on Pitt Panther Fanatics on Facebook, also on Twitter. These are really good guys. If you're looking for the fake slide Pilsner, Bethel Park is the way to go and go see those guys. They're always really good people, but more importantly, it's helping to support, hopefully, a better team here in the future because we're going to need it. Guys, on tap today, obviously the embarrassing loss by Pitt, 21-17 to a third-string quarterback against Wake Forest. Guys, you're going to hear a lot of repetitive stuff here tonight, but what I can tell you is this offense, okay? I know we're going to want to talk about the defense, especially the last two drives of the game, and we're going to get to the slide. We're going to talk about should have Christian Veyer slide, should he have slid, or should he just ran out of bounds? Before we get into all that, guys, the defense should really be taking less of a harp in this game. I know the last two drives weren't very good for Pitt, giving up 21 points to a third-string quarterback, but the defense held them in the entire game. And also, too, a staple of the Pat Narduzzi era, and I thought we were really past it, is the continuous penalties that it continually just harp in this team. I've talked about it numerous of times in terms of just how bad this team is in terms of not being able to withhold the penalties, and the majority of them are on offense. Now, we did have a couple. Donovan McMillan needs to know not to drag a guy 5 yards off of the pile. That's an immediate, easy penalty to call upon people. Was not happy about that. But when you look at this overall, that the penalties have to stop. I mean, that's just one of the clear indicators of this is an undisciplined football team. I know they're young. Obviously, the young linebacking core was out there, especially for all four quarters. But overall, when you look at this team, the defense played well, kept them in the game. But besides the first drive and the second to last drive on offense, this offense was just mediocre. Mediocre, no identity. No, in terms of anything that looks like a remotely competent offense. I mean, if I see one more illegal shift or one more guy lined up wrong in the backfield, I'm going to lose my mind. There's no identity to this offense and this team, especially on offense, but the play calling is more suspect in terms of that even more. Now, before I get into a little bit more, I'm going to go into the comments now because now they're starting to pile up here a little bit. Let's see here. Will, horrible loss. Sig should never have been hired. The first place and has to go. Again, I'll eat the crow. I looked at it from the beginning. Was it a home run hire when they got Signetti? No. But when you looked at his offense at Boston College, what he was able to do with the tight ends, that just completely just went by the wayside. Gavin Bartholomew is easily the best player on this football team. There's no questions. There's no ands or ors about it. He is the best guy on this football team and clearly needs to be the one moving forward that gets more touches. And they were trying to do that every time you start getting towards him. He catches everything, but then they just go away from him. The same thing with the running back room. I think Andre Powell has to take a little bit of heat for that too. The rotation is absolutely ridiculous, and I think it needs to be talked about. But overall, guys, I can tell you this: Frank Cignetti is not going to survive this. Talk to enough people. He's not going to be here next year, which will be a good thing. This offense needs a revamp. Needs to 110% needs to go reconstruction in terms of what the offensive scheme is. Me personally, there is talent on this team. I think Christian Veyer is going to be a good quarterback, but he's making those rookie mistakes right now, and you're starting to see some of those. But more importantly, he continues to develop. 300 yards this past game, 2 touchdowns, but the 2 touchdowns were really the first drive and the last drive. We need to start developing within that, and I think just the offense in general has not been doing what it needs to do. Adam, I agree, Will. Up to the top comment. Hope they can keep the recruits. What can they possibly say to keep them? Adam, I'm going to be honest with you, man. I don't see maybe 1, maybe 2 decommitments. That's it. Because here's the thing. It comes down to NIL. And I tell people about this because it's a fact. And I saw it a little bit after the game because it's in the heat of the moment. That's why I always check the next day. For people that say that I'm not going to contribute to Alliance 412 until Frank Cignetti's fired or whatever. Frank, if they lose the next game really bad, me personally, I would right now fire Frank Cignetti and put Tim Salem as the offensive coordinator and let him just run it till the end of the year. But overall, he's not going to more than likely go anywhere. He's not until the end of the year. He's not going to be gone, but I can tell you this until the end of the year, and he is going to be gone after that, and then they'll have a search after that. But when it comes to NIL, man, at the end of the day, they're here because of the NIL and the talent, the perspective, and the relationships they're building. But Alliance 412 has done a hell of a job, and people don't want to talk about it. I'm here to tell you, a lot of these guys, and especially too with basketball, Alliance 412 is doing a hell of a job. And I think that's why there's been such a push, and you'll see from a number of different people that supporting Alliance 412 is going to help and lead to more and more better prospects. This incoming class, you've already seen. Look how many freshmen are playing this year over guys that were potential guys that are the 5th year or 6th year guys that aren't playing as much because the freshmen are taking over. Kenny Johnson, another perfect example of that. Kenny Johnson's going to be a hell of a player for Pitt next year and moving forward because he's got the talent. He has the speed. He catches anything within his radius. He's going to be a guy moving forward. I think, Day Reynolds, he's going to be back again. Kanate Mumfield, I see him coming back again. I just think they got a lot of talent on offense. You're seeing some of these younger guys, the younger guys on the offensive line. I expect Gavin Bartholomew to be back. But you look at the incoming class. There is plenty of talent in this freshman class. And in the prospective class of 2024, it looks good. They have talent coming in because of Alliance 412 and the development and the relationships that they've built. Alliance 412 is so key that the big donors are there. And they've proven that in the early portions because they haven't had any subscriptions. But now, as you look forward, the more subscriptions we get, the more money we're able to raise consistently each month. You're going to see more and more. You're going to see more and more talent coming in here. And wait till you see this 2024 class. It's going to be something. And one of the underrated players in this class, to be honest with you, is the Penn Hills quarterback, Julian Duggar. That kid's going to be really, really good. I think, and I'll tell you what, Carlo's one of those guys who's been pumping him up quite a bit. When you go back and watch his film and watch his tape at Penn Hills, he carries that team quite a bit. D-line is underwhelming. Need to go into the portal. Wish Morgan would have stayed. Brother, I'm the same way. I wish Morgan would have stayed, but then again, I think that they're a little disappointed in what the defensive line has looked like in terms of, what they thought it was going to be. Nakai Johnson has been on the field very much. He hasn't taken that next step. Elliot Donald's been on the field a little bit, but he hasn't taken that next step. Sean Fitzsimmons has been hurt. He's been lingering with an injury. Obviously, Jules. I'll tell you what, DeAndre Jules has been a surprise guy that just comes out of nowhere. He's been here for 5 years. He's a guy that's he's looked really good this year. But honestly, Dayon Hayes, I mean, there's times he has that sparks. Excuse me, but there's other times he has a spark, and there's other times he just levels off and you just can't find him. And just a lack of pass rush between the top 4 guys. Look at Ghost, Isaiah Neal. I expect him to start playing towards the end of the year so they can conserve his red shirt. But he's going to be a guy next year to look after. He's going to be looking really good. But there's going to be other guys behind him. And you're going to see into this class. There's more guys coming in this class. Jasir Whittington, the 4-star defensive tackle here out of Pennsylvania. He's going to, I tell you what, he's a talented player. And to be honest with you, he's built just like Kalijah Cansey. He's higher rated because he's just really good. And these other schools, in terms of what the talent looks like and being able to recruit players, they just can't develop the smaller defensive tackles, and Pitt can. So I think he's going to be another guy that's going to look really good. These two classes have been huge. And again, for me personally, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I truly believe that this is a hiccup year. Okay. The last 2 years, they won 20, they won 20 games in 2 years, ranked in the top 25 to end the year. Guys, this is the same team that beat number 15 UCLA last year. I think the regression comes from the offense. There's been some mishaps on defense, not enough pressure, stopping the run early on in the beginning of the year. But when you look at the second half against Cincinnati, they stopped the run. And really in the second half against West Virginia, they stopped the run. If you had competent quarterback play and a competent scheme, those 2 games are wins. Wake Forest is a win. That's 3 wins. So in reality, they're probably like 5-2 at the worst. At the worst right now, they're 5-2. So the way that I look at it is that this is a hiccup year. If Pat Narduzzi, which Heather Light's going to have a say, I can promise you that 100%. She's going to have a say in who's being able to be hired, but more importantly, they're going to pay. There's been some good names out here, and guess what? We'll be talking about some of those names tonight that I've heard about that could potentially be coming to Pitt, and then a couple of guys I think they should look at, to be quite honest with you. Mark, what does Deuce take from this season? Will he recognize the need to adjust quicker in future seasons should a QB situation or any other position come up in future seasons? Mark, I can tell you this right now. It's a hell of a learning curve he's got right now. He needs to understand, and I think he will, because the hot seat's going to get really brutal. We don't know what the buyout is for Pat Narduzzi, but as the years go on, it's starting to pick up. But I can tell you this, like anybody else, he's a loyal guy to his players. And again, it's a good thing and a bad thing at times. Bad thing because he didn't pull Phil Jurkovec earlier. A good thing because, guys, we don't have a lot of transfers that leave this program because of the loyalty that they have towards the coaching staff here, because they're treated so well and they're paid. Just being honest, that NIL deal where all 85 players are now on scholarship, plus a certain players, you'll have like the 20 or 30 players that make more money because they're, one, special individuals and special players. That's huge. In the market, I mean, you saw Utah, Utah is giving their players, a lease on, a Dodge Ram. That's great. These players are getting cash. I mean, that's just a fact. They're getting paid and they're making more money, which allows you to say, hey, when you're talking to a recruit, it's why in this class, I don't expect these guys to leave this recruiting class, because they're getting an NIL deal automatically off the bat. Boom. That money's there. Almost 6 figures you're making off the bat. But then on top of that, when you come in here and you earn your stripes in that first year, Kenny Johnson's going to get more money. I can tell you that. Jordan Bass, as he continues to play, he's going to get more money. He got a hell of a deal coming out of high school. We held off North Carolina and numerous other teams that tried to scoop him up from us. But that's why, to show you guys, that's why Alliance 412 is so crucial and why it's so important for Pitt fans and the general public, guys like myself, guys like you guys, men and women, everybody, to get involved with this, because Pitt can win championships here. I got a little upset about, the Blue Vase stuff, because when it was taken out of context, it wasn't the right thing. The source was horrible. It wasn't really a guy who was even connected to the program, had no idea what it was about. But it can be done. Winning championships here. You saw it the 2 years previously. I think this is a wake-up call for Pat Narduzzi. And Mark, I do believe he's going to learn, because you can't continue to make these mistakes. And to be honest with you, the only 2 OC hires that I say they're bad for Pat Narduzzi was Sean Watson and Frank Zignetti. So you look at the other hires. Obviously, Whipple was bad the first 2 years, but that third year, he took off, and we won an ACC title. And obviously, when you have a Heisman candidate and you have multiple first-round draft picks on your team, Jordan Addison. You had Jordan Addison involved, Kalijah Cansey. These guys, because of Alliance 412, they jumped in, and it was really Chris Bickle. Chris Bickle was the one taking a head storm to keep us competitive. Now that Alliance 412 is here with the Oakland Originals, you got to support this stuff. You have to, because it actually keeps us in front of people. You'd be surprised at what the numbers look like for how competitive Pitt is compared to everybody else. That's why these classes for Pitt are getting better and better. And wait till you see the transfers they go after. There's already transfers that they're already looking at. It's already happening for next year. They're already looking. They're developing, and they're showing the talent that they have now, the young talent, developing it now to prepare for next year. But you're also, too, you're kind of fizzling out. Okay, hey, this guy's got some eligibility left, but he's not really getting it done. Maybe we move on from him. That's what you're starting to see. Will, is playing for a bowl berth even on the table at this point, or do you play for the future and get the young guys meaningful experience? It seems like there's no middle ground here. Will, I can tell you this, in college football, it's not the National Football League. I'm 110% playing to win. And guess what? Sometimes it's playing your younger guys. Sometimes it's not. But at this point, I really don't see a bowl game happening. In my heart of hearts, and some people aren't going to like to hear this, when you lose to Wake Forest, who's a third-string quarterback, and you can only score 17 points, you had 2 touchdowns the first drive of the game and the last drive of the game, you're kind of shit creek. I mean, you really need to start reevaluating who the hell's calling your plays and your schematics and the amount of penalties that we had. Me personally, I think this team's either going to go 4-8 or 5-7 to end the year. That's just my opinion. It's a down year. It is what it is. It's not fun, but you got to support this team and you got to support Alliance 412. It's that simple, because that's the stuff that's going to keep us competitive. It's less about the 5-7 season, guys. Unfortunately, these players coming out of high school, it's not even about the teams anymore. It's just about NIL. Who's going to give them an opportunity to get on the field? So if it's for Pitt right now, if you're selling, hey, you got an opportunity to come in here and play some early snaps for us on top of getting paid. I mean, just being honest with you guys, Pitt does develop talent here. They do. And you can see it in the National Football League. And on top of that, guys, behind the scenes, Darrell Revis, Aaron Donald, Larry Fitzgerald, Tyler Boyd, Curtis Martin, they're all recruiting hard for Pitt behind closed doors, and you guys don't even know about it. I'm telling you, we just need to stay the path. Pat Narduzzi needs to look himself in the mirror and say, hey, I need to get younger. I need to get younger in terms of the offensive staff. If this season continues the way it's going, me personally, Frank Signetti, Andre Powell, and Dave Borbley need to find a new place, because there needs to be changes. The defense cannot be holding this team to a higher standard every single game. You need to score points in college football. You have to. If you do not score points, you're not going to win. Prime example, losing to a shit dog Wake Forest team. Case in point. Let's see here. Trey. If I can scroll down here. And again, guys, I appreciate all the comments that are coming in. That's why I'm going to do a live stream and record this so everyone can see it after. But two, it's always good to touch base with you guys, because the channel is what it is because of you guys. That's why I love doing this. Horrible call at the end, but second and third quarter, lack of scoring, also disappointing. Seems like Sidnetti to blame most, but thoughts on the offensive struggles in the middle. Trey, very simple. The schematics of this offense is absolutely horrendous. Okay, I don't like the scheme. It's a West Coast offense, pro style that works. It works in the NFL, but when you're trying to teach, especially to college football players, but also too, you're not dealing with the National Football League talent. You're not. It's not all 85 guys are college or NFL athletes. Me personally, I do not like how we don't have any type of identity on offense. I mean, look at this offense from just a ground level. We don't run the ball well. We don't throw the ball well. So what the hell do we do? I think when you look at Sidnetti, he's just all over the place. And I think the scripted plays to start the game, that's great. We all loved it. I even said, hey, that's a great first drive. Christian Veyer looked great. But how the hell do you stop pushing the ball down the field? How do you stop using the middle of the field? And for the love of God, why is Rodney Hammond not getting enough touches? I know for a fact he was dealing with an injury early on. Why is he not getting more touches? That's your best back. And I understand Sebo Flemister in there. Where the hell's Derek Davis? Derek Davis is a good back. I don't care what anybody says. He's a good running back, and he will be here next year, and he will get a lot of touches next year. Still up in the air whether Rodney Hammond comes back, if he goes to the NFL, if he comes back, or he's in the transfer portal, who the hell knows? But I know this. He's a loyal guy. Rodney Hammond is a true Pitt man through thick and thin. That's what really leads me to believe he'll be back, because of this lackluster offense this year and just not being healthy. I think he does a great job if he comes back, to be quite honest with you. But when you look at the second and third quarter, and I even say the second half of the first quarter, on from the first half of the second half of the first, second, third, and really half the fourth quarter, this offense just has no identity. They have no idea in terms of, are we going to run the football? And then when we run, it's like 3rd down and 6. In the third, what killed me in the beginning of the fourth quarter, it's 3rd and 6. We ran an offside counter. And there's no even potential of hurry up. It's almost like sometimes we're watching the game play And it looks like we're up by like 15 points. That's why we're just taking our time getting to the line. That starts with coaching. I think just the lack of coaching on offense is severe. And also, too, just the regression from the offensive line. I know Blake Zubovic and Jake Cradle came back. It's their first game back. I expected them to be a little bit rusty. They've been out for 3 or 4 weeks. Blake Zubovic was out a couple weeks. But overall, when you look at this offense, how much it's regressed, and just the mindset of there is no identity to this offense, and the play calling is obscene. I mean, there's certain points we don't even use the middle of the field. It's almost like watching Matt Canada and the Steelers at this point. Everything is a 50-50 ball on the outside, and then when we finally have success over the middle of the field, it's at the end of the game or the first drive of the game. I just don't get it. I don't know what their thought process is or what he's trying to do or what he's trying to accomplish. There's just no adjustments. Mark, where does Heather stand in all of this? More specifically, how much does this season factor into her future? So much positive traction coming into the season. Want the momentum to continue. Mark, I can tell you this. For all intents and purposes, whether we win or lose doesn't really matter. She is a staple of this university because of the progress that she's had. Here's what I've been told in terms of Heather's future. And this is just a fact, and it is what it is. Take it or leave it. And I tell this to a bunch of people. If Ohio State today, tomorrow, 6 months, offers Heather like the job in Columbus, she's taking it. I'm telling you that right now. She's taking it. And she would be nuts not to. I think it's Ohio State. Unlimited funds. You do what you want to do. Be competitive at the highest level. But what I can tell you is this. Joan Gable, the new staff that's in here, they're making a competitive offer. And I mean a significant raise. She is going, if Ohio State doesn't offer her the job, and personally me, and this is my personal opinion, no inside source on anybody that I've talked to, I know he's going to get interviewed. Patrick Chung is going to be the guy, and Patrick Chung, I'm sorry, is who's out at Washington State right now. He's going to be the one that gets the job at Ohio State, in my personal and honest opinion. I think he does a hell of a job, and Heather does a hell of a job. There's going to be numerous candidates for this job. But it's Ohio State. They're going to pick someone who's been at Ohio State. Pat has been there. I think he's done a hell of a job at Washington State, and he's going to be higher up on that board. Heather Light's going to be higher up on that board. And for me, I really do hope that they do pick him because I want Heather to stay here. That's the only job Heather would leave Pitt for is Ohio State. It's Ohio State. She was there for 15, 16 years. There's nothing you can possibly do about that. It's Ohio State. You just can't compete with it, even with the offer. I can tell you this right now. It's going to be a hell of an offer for her to stay here. And I know they're going to put it to the table because, and keep this in the front of your mind too. The front porch of every university is athletics, but more importantly, football. This staff, the new chancellor, they understand this. And I can tell you this too. For people that ask me, and then before, because I've already seen the questions come through here, and I only want to answer it once because I don't want to go too much into it. But you can, guys, hold me to this. And I will take the heat if it doesn't happen, but I know it's going to happen. Pitt is going to build their own stadium. And I cannot wait to see when people come back to me and they say, oh, JJ, you were right. We shouldn't have bashed you. I'm telling you, they're going to build their own stadium, and it's coming. Just telling you. I'm not going to say where it's at or anything like that. I'm telling you it's coming. That's all I'm going to say. Let's see, Adam here. Should have kept the up-tempo. I know, Adam. Please don't even get me started on that. The up-tempo was clearly working for Pitt whenever they used it, especially from the beginning of the game to the end of the game. And then even in the second and third quarter, you saw how the offense stalled. The minute they started going up-tempo, they started moving the football. And then at the end, they get to midfield and they just stop moving. They just stop the hurry up and start huddling again. I think the change of pace where you're able to go into a huddle and you're able to keep Wake Forest off their pace, or any team for that matter, to keep them off balance is huge. I got news for you. They better do it this week against Notre Dame. Notre Dame's a good football team. Sam Hartman, say for what he wants. We kicked his ass, in Charlotte. We won the ACC championship game. But the kid's got a lot more talent at Notre Dame. And you saw them just wax USC. It's going to be in South Bend. I may be going to that game, so I'll let you guys know what happens with that. But they got to figure it out. It's a big game coming this week. And then when Florida State comes to Pittsburgh, I know there's players on this team that have it circled. Marquez Williams told me that one of the big games. Obviously, he's a Florida kid. He had that game circled. That's going to be a big game. That's going to be a very vibrant game at Acrisure Stadium. But these next two games, in a way, you look at the Wake Forest game, which is horrendous loss. Just again, the embarrassment, along with losing to a third string quarterback, along with the offense not doing nothing. I want to see how this team responds facing Notre Dame and Florida State. Two very good football teams. I want to see how this team responds after a loss like this. And if I know anything about Pitt football right now, those guys will respond and they will be ready to play. My question now is, does the coaching staff actually get it going? That's my question. Will, NFL Gimpy has a scathing breakdown of Pitt's offense on Twitter/X this morning. So predictable structurally and poor execution on top of that. Yeah, I mean, I could go through the schematics, and I may do one of these live streams where I show you guys in terms of actual schematics where they're route trees. I think that when you're watching the game live or you're actually there in person, you don't get to see the route trees. The route trees are horrendous. I don't like how every pass and every throw is outside the numbers. When we actually use the middle of the field, it's actually useful. We get a lot of great plays. Bob Means had numerous plays through the middle that actually look good. So did Kenny Johnson, and so did Day Reynolds. Where the hell does that go for the second, third, and fourth quarter? Who the hell knows? Trey, thanks. I'll have to watch for that. Yep. Play. Trust me, Trey, it's worth it. The truth of the matter is Pitt is not going to be good and consistent until they get a top end recruits. The class rank is in the 30s with 1 4-star. Steven, I can tell you this right now. I know for a fact with some of these, and specifically with 247, if you do both, they actually have 6 4-star recruits right now. They have the recruits, Steve. I mean, the last 2 years. So in terms of top level talent, how many guys had hell, Michigan had Jordan Addison and Notre Dame had Jordan Addison playing corner. Pitt had him playing wide receiver. Did a hell of a job. Kalijah Cansey, barely anybody recruited him. Comes to Pitt. It's a first-round draft pick. I can go through it. Damar Hamlin, even when Paris Ford, he fell off the face of the earth. But, at least when he was here, they proved that. He was highly recruited, but there was questions about him. He performed well when he was here. But then you look at the rest of the teams. MJ Devonshire, he was a 4-star recruit. Not many guys were out towards the end there besides like Penn State, Kentucky. Went to Kentucky and then decided to come back. But overall, Rashad Weaver, 2-star recruit. Patrick Jones, 2-star recruit. I'm just being honest. It's less about that and more about the coaching. The offensive coaching needs to be better. It's that plain and simple. It has to be better. If it's somewhat even competent, this team looks completely different. If we had competent quarterback play and a competent scheme to where we actually had an identity, this team at worst right now through 7 games is 5-2. So I don't know. The proof's in the pudding. They got talent there. You're going to see it this next coming class in. I'm just telling you. Hope MJ stays. He's up and down, plus no experience for next year. Yeah, I think honestly though, you're going to see them in the portal getting some cornerbacks because honestly, I think Ryan Gandy's going to be good. You heard Archie Collins and Corey Sanders saying, look, if those guys are good enough, they'd be out there. But at the same time, though, why in God's name would you take AJ Woods or Marquez Williams or MJ Devonshire off the field? Personally, I think it's going to be tough. We'll see what the grades come back as for MJ Devonshire. But MJ is easily in 110% easily an NFL cornerback. He is. He's been a little bit inconsistent this year, but man, that guy can find the ball, man. He gets interceptions like it's nobody's business. So we'll see where he goes. I can tell you this, if he's a day 1 or day 2 pick, he's gone for a fact. So we'll see what that looks like. I personally think right now, in my honest and personal opinion, I think he's an early day 2 pick. I think he's an early second round pick at this point. It's just my opinion. Adam, it's 1976. Sign up, everyone. Adam, thank you. By the way, I was actually the 1976, but I went up one more level to the $40 one. $40 and some change. Just that's with me personally, guys. I'm never going to tell you how to spend your money or do whatever. That's just not what I do. I don't tell anybody how to spend their money. But all I can do is just urge you to say, hey, this is so important to what the future of Pitt football looks like. I'm just telling you. I'm just telling you that the way that this team is continuing to recruit and to bring the certain players in, the Jordan Basses of the world, who you're going to love, Jimmy Bear Scott, who's going to step up on the defensive line here pretty soon. The talent, Samuel Okunlola, Isaiah Neal, Ghost. He's going to be a hell of a defensive tackle. Donovan McMillan, we got him out of the portal, NIL, just being honest. And honestly, Donovan McMillan, a hometown hero, and then talking about coming back, Derek Davis. All these guys are good dudes, great football players. Just got to get some competent schemes out there and some good coaches that know how to use talent. Coaching is so underrated sometimes. It's just mind-blowing when you don't have good coaches or good schematics to understand what this offense needs to do. You can have problems. Coach, my man, you guys don't know Coach. Coach is a Notre Dame fan. So obviously we'll be facing Notre Dame next week. It should be a good game with the Fighting Irish. Coach, I completely agree. Again, love you, my guy. It's going to be a fun game. It's always good with Pitt, Notre Dame. Maybe up. I was telling guys earlier, maybe up in South Bend this next weekend. We'll see what happens with getting tickets and whatnot. So we'll see. A new Pitt Stadium announcement is imminent. I wouldn't say it's imminent, Will. I'm just telling you that it's up in the stadium lease for Acrisure is up in 2031. From my understanding, from what I've been told from people within executives between downtown attorneys and whatnot, there has been a lot of talk about potentially that the Steelers move out of downtown Pittsburgh and move to you have the North Hills or the South Hills where they just, they created that turnpike because they're trying to do what they're trying to, the same thing with for instance, Los Angeles, who we face tonight, or like Jerry's World. They want to create Steeler City. I think it's going to be a little bit tough to do that in terms of getting the funds and whatnot. David Morehouse, who they just brought from the Pittsburgh Penguins, was spearheading the Penguins. That's how they got their new place. He's involved with that. Me personally, I think it comes down to the Steelers renovating their place. And it's probably going to be millions and hundreds of millions of dollars, to be honest with you. That's probably what they're going to do. I would not be shocked if you heard the announcement about a new Pitt Stadium within 2025 or 2026. So I expect the stadium to probably be built 3 or 4 years, probably in that time range. Depending upon the two places that they're kind of looking at this point, we'll continue to monitor that, and we'll continue to see. Mark, great show. JJ, thanks for your insights and taking questions. Glad Gable values and athletics. So informative. Thank you, Mark. Hey, thank you. You guys make this show fun. That's why I love doing this, and I cannot tell you enough from people within my Pitt circles from the university that just got me into doing this because it's just a good platform to be honest with people and not give any bullshit. Just how I am. So again, the show is great because of guys like you, Mark, and I cannot thank you enough. And anytime I get information, I'm going to tell you guys, especially too when it's said, hey, this is really good information. I'm going to give it to you guys cut and dry. I mean, there's just no bullshit in between. I could care less about clicks, just telling you the truth of how it is. And that's why I appreciate guys like you, Mark, who are, Mark, Will, Coach. I appreciate all you guys, Adam, Trey. You guys are the best whenever you guys come on here and ask questions. And by the way, the questions have been incredible all night, anytime I do a live stream. That's why I need to start doing more live streams. If offensive coaching were as good as defensive coaching, we'd be a perennial top 15 program right now. I'm gonna be honest with you. If our offense was consistent, and again, I know it's hard to work for Narduzzi, and he does make some boneheaded mistakes from time to time, we would be in the top 20 consistently, without a doubt. And I think that's going to be something that's going to be talked about at the end of the year with Heather Lyke and Pat, because look, they meet every single year. And it's funny, a couple stories about, the Mark Whipple stuff. When Mark Whipple, if you guys remember, if Kenny Pickett didn't come back, Mark Whipple wasn't being retained. He was going to be let go. Mark Whipple was not happy about that. He thought he was doing such a great job, which was wild to me. Our offense for the first 2 years was absolutely horrendous under Whipple the first 2 years. So why he thought he was owed a 2 or 3 year extension. But Pat Narduzzi, just so everybody knows, Pat Narduzzi stomped on the table for Mark Whipple to come back his third year, which allowed Kenny Pickett to come back. And Pat Narduzzi was the one leading the charge. Just Mark Whipple was not happy about only getting a one year extension. That was a huge thing behind the drop. So that's another thing that was just crazy. So did Mark Whipple deserve more than a 1 year deal after the first 2 years? Hell no. Pat Narduzzi did a hell of a job getting just everybody collectively to say, hey, he needs to come back because Kenny Pickett's going to come back and it's all going to come together in the third year, which it did. So that's one of the things that are just so valuable. Adam, want to hear some OC candidates? Ooh, all right. So we're going to get a little touchy here because I've got some names that have been thrown around, and I actually created a list here in my notes because there's actually some really good ones when you look at them. Let's see here. So the first one that I want to talk about that I've heard a lot about. Okay. And that's Mike Shanahan. Okay. Who's currently the offensive coordinator at James Madison right now under Kurt Cignetti, which is Frank Cignetti's brother. Here's the thing you got to know about these two brothers, Kurt Cignetti and Frank Cignetti. They don't agree on anything collectively on offense. Their two philosophies are completely different. They don't agree on, I mean, if you said you had to go X, he would say Y. I mean, it's just that simple. They're completely, I mean, it's just completely two different things. Okay. When you look at Shanahan, obviously a Pitt guy, honestly, I would probably think if Shanahan came over, Tino Sinceri would probably come over in terms of do something with the quarterbacks, because Tino Sinceri is a quarterback coach there. Shanahan's had a lot of success at JMU. I mean, right now they're 7-0 right now. It's their first year in the FC and the FBS, and technically through the NCAA, their first year of statistics can't count. I hope that's overturned, because let me tell you something. JMU, they are scoring at a rapid rate. I think last week against Marshall, they didn't do too hot. I'll have to look up the numbers, but when you look at the average points per game, I mean, they're over 35 points a game. I mean, they're scoring at a level that's unprecedented. And I got, whether people want to hit this or not, Pitt's got a lot more talent than what JMU is working with. And I understand they're not facing as high level of teams in terms of the group of five and not being the power five. I got news for you. If you're scoring 35 points on a consistent basis, 35, 40 points, the one game they had 45, that says something. That's really, really, really hard to do. Okay. So Shanahan's going to be on that list, and you'll see Taglianetti, who was obviously played here. He was from Central Catholic, was a Pitt football player back in the day. He was a stud. It was so much fun watching him. And then Taglianetti is, his dad obviously played for the Pittsburgh Penguins. They're still here in the Pittsburgh area. Corey Taglianetti, she played at Oakland Catholic. Just a tremendous family in terms of good character, good people, but also too extremely athletic. Just a really good family overall. But he's going to be on that list. Okay. Another name that I would really like them to take a look at is Scotty Montgomery. Scotty Montgomery right now he was a former head football coach at East Carolina University. Okay. He got let go from there. Incredible offensive mind, a guy that was really, really good. I thought he was tremendous in terms of putting together offenses. He's with actually the Detroit Lions right now. He's an assistant head coach, I believe, but not the offensive coordinator there. Personally, I think he would be tremendous. Also, too, a name that they would certainly pay for because of his track record, the quarterback coach from the Buffalo Bills. That's Joe Brady. Joe Brady right now with them. Obviously, if you think you remember the name or you've heard of that name, Joe Brady was the offensive coordinator at LSU, where they had possibly, in my opinion, the best college football team of all time. I mean, it was the best season. They absolutely just destroyed every single team they faced. Joe Brady's extremely, extremely creative when it comes to offenses, and especially towards the run game, passing concepts, being able to get guys in certain positions, matchups. And that's really what you need in college football. You need the matchups. You got to be able to look at these two different sides. Hey, we're going one-on-one against this corner. How do we put our certain guys? Maybe instead of having him on the outside this week, he's on the inside. He knows what he's doing. Obviously, Joe Brady was hired by Matt Rule at the Carolina Panthers. Joe Brady was fired from there. I think less of because of the situation about his play calling, but more of the talent, the lack of talent that was at Carolina. Obviously, David Tepper, Pitt man, obviously does a lot of stuff behind the scenes that you guys don't know about. That he does a lot of fundraising for Pitt. Donates a lot of money to Pitt in terms of especially basketball. Obviously, he owns the Carolina Panthers. Joe Brady was there, got fired, and obviously he's ever since he's been with the Buffalo Bills. I can tell you this right now. He's a guy that would certainly want to be at OC again. And I can tell you this, if you threw money at him, I mean, hell, we offered Matt Canada, a little bit more than $1 million a year, and he said no, went to LSU, which was a dumbass decision on his end. His offense would have never worked down there anyways, but the story is the story, you know what I mean? And Pat Narduzzi talked about that by just, instead of being patient and looking for a head coaching job, he didn't want to do it. So that's on him. Overall, though, Joe Brady would be another name. Another name that you ought to look at, and personally, I think the relationship there is still good. I think he's a little upset he didn't get it this last time. Chris Beatty, former wide receiver coach for Pitt, recruited Rodney Hammond, recruited Jordan Addison. He is very much in terms of wanting to be an offensive coordinator in college. I can tell you that right now. Wants to develop a name in terms of being an offensive coordinator. Chris Beatty is another name. Obviously a hell of a recruiter. I mean, the guy can recruit like nobody's business. Anywhere he's been at Maryland, he's been at West Virginia, he's been at I think at UVA, I think maybe Virginia Tech, and then he's also obviously been at Pitt. He's been numerous places. He's done a hell of a job anywhere he's been. Personally, me, in terms of his connections with Virginia, in terms of the East Coast in general with recruiting, I think he would do a hell of a job, and he really wants an offensive coordinator position. Personally, I would like to see him. He's a younger guy. I think he can be very creative. But it would be interesting to see what he does in terms of does Pat Narduzzi reach back out to them? Pat Narduzzi is going to do a whole wide search anyways. He's going to talk to candidates that have never been there before. So it'll be fun to see like what he does. But those are just some of the names that currently I've heard. Names that I think that would be really good for Pitt. You've seen a number of different guys I talked about in there, being younger guys, creative. That's who you want on offense. Also too, a name that was, very much thrown out there and in a heart of hearts. Let me tell you something. I know he received a contract extension recently because he's a tremendous man. I think he's building something down there, but we'll see. Be very, very, very close to what happens with Pitt and Joe Moorhead. Joe Moorhead right now is the head coach at Akron right now. Obviously, from people that I've talked to, Joe Moorhead pretty much turned down Notre Dame. He wanted to be closer to home. That's his real goal, is to be close to home with his family, which, again, if you know anything about Joe Moorhead, I mean, he is he's a Pitt guy at heart, but more importantly, he's just a good man. He's a guy that he would certainly fit in Pitt. Our culture, who we are as people. I always say the difference at Pitt is the people. When you look at Pitt in general, it's a tight-knit group. We're not a huge fan base, but, the past couple of years when we were winning, we're averaging 54 to 58,000 fans. When you're winning, people are showing up. Now, do I wish more Pitt fans would show up, especially too during the season, even when we are struggling? Yeah, because it means a lot in terms of recruiting, being consistent with helping the program, all that kind of stuff. But, show up to the games but still complain about the team. I could totally understand that. But please pay attention to what happens with Joe Moorhead. Guys, if Pitt would somehow pull that off and get Joe Moorhead and pay him, and more importantly, solidify that answer that that's our guy in terms of the next 5, 10, 15 years, that's our OC. Woo. Guys, let me tell you something. That's in heart of hearts, Joe Moorhead is my top candidate. I really do. I think he's a great guy, man. He's a good family man. I could go on for hours about how good of a guy Joe Moorhead is and just how good he could be here. Just my opinion. Adam, Brady would bring in elite recruits, just use the LSU tape, young and energetic. Adam, I know, man. Believe me, that's what you're looking for in an offense. And Joe Brady was able to run the football at will, along with being able to create passing concepts that were just absolutely incredible in the college game. I would love to see that. Beatty would be amazing recruiter. Mike, I completely agree. I think he's, again, like you said, great recruiter. But I think he's been really battling for that spot to actually take over as an OC somewhere. He's been looking for that opportunity. And I think he's actually looking for it. If he was offered that job here at Pitt, he would take it in a heartbeat. Actually, let me rephrase that. If he was offered the OC job at Pitt, he would take it. I know that. Brady and Beatty would be home run hires. Adam, 110%. Brady, Beatty, or Moorhead would be fantastic hires. Yeah, I mean, honestly, yeah, I wouldn't have an issue with any of those. I think they're all completely incredible hires. I think they would be doing, you would see the transformation in the offense because of the talent that we have here. On top of look at the young offensive linemen that we have, but also, too, the guys that haven't played yet. There's some guys behind the scenes, like Terrence Enos. He's a guy that's going to be able to step up here pretty soon. Ryan Bayer continues to develop. Ryan Bayer is going to be one of our best, if not the best, offensive linemen that we have. I just think he's an absolute stud. Branson Taylor will continue to get better. B.J. Williams. That's a true freshman, guys. A true freshman playing in the Power 5. I don't know if you guys understand how hard that is. And his physical grip, his physical attributes are just wild, out of this world. As a young guy like that, he's going to be really good. Same thing with Terrence Moore. I just think you get a more friendly offense instead of a pro-style offense where it takes 6 years to learn what the hell we're doing would be kind of nice. And no offense, but Pat Narduzzi talked about Christian Vayers coming from an offense. It was a one-word thing to this is a more of a sophisticated offense. Well, maybe we need a one-word offense because shit looks ridiculous right now. Matt Canada, Trey, don't you do that shit to me. No, I don't want that. No, we've had enough of him. Please, no more Matt Canada or nothing. But Will, in terms of what Moorhead and all them would bring, you guys would be beyond pumped if he came here, because he would never leave. I can promise you right now, he would never leave. Also, too, you look at it, and Trey laughed my ass off. Yeah, don't do that shit to me, Trey. I got enough PTSD from last week's game. If I hear that the Matt Canada coming back, I'm going to lose my mind. But Joe Moorhead, man, dude, Will, Joe Brady, Chris Beatty, or Joe Moorhead, man, that is a winning recipe, man, overall, when you look at that team, especially putting that together. I'm a WVU guy, LOL. Oh, well, there you go. That's why you're doing that shit, Trey. You're killing me. By the way, Trey, obviously West Virginia guy. Make sure, obviously, I bet you already are. Make sure you follow Kuz's Corner. Does a hell of a job down there. Also, Mountaineer Paul. They do a really good job. I love them. They do a hell of a job. But honestly, in terms of the game, guys, let me tell you something. We're going to get on a very touchy topic here. Should Christian Veilleux have slid or run out of bounds? Here's why I'm going to tell you guys, okay? And I'm going to go back and look up the time period here, because I watched the game twice, which is very painful in itself. And I took some of the notes. If you look at the time period, I'm going to tell you why he should have ran out of bounds, okay? If I can just pull it up here. Let me see here. Let me see. Where's it at? It's in my notes somewhere here. I got so many notes here, guys. It's ridiculous. Yeah, so here, guys. Okay. Prime example here. So I wrote it down. If Christian Veilleux ran out of bounds, the clock would have stopped at 45 seconds. Guys, 45 seconds, okay? If you run a play, let's say, okay, for instance, you run a play, it's at least 3 seconds. So then Wake Forest calls a timeout, 42 seconds, okay? So Christian Veilleux, make sure he gets the first down, you're out of bounds, 45 seconds left in the game. He takes one, you run one more run play, call timeout, 42 seconds left. Then you run one more play, because Wake Forest had 2 timeouts, takes 3 seconds off the clock. Now you have 39 seconds, okay? Now it's let's say like 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, whatever. They only get a couple yards, whatever. Wake Forest is out of timeouts. The play clock is the play clock, for instance, it's at 40 seconds. If he runs out of bounds, you run those 2 plays, you're under 40 seconds, you run the next play. The play clock doesn't probably start till 35 seconds. So now all you need to do is run play, one more play, or just kneel it. That's it. I know fans were so touchy about this topic, man, and I know they didn't want to hear this, and I know they were arguing me online. They're like, do the math. I did the math. Okay, they had 2 timeouts left. If Christian Veilleux runs out of bounds, it's 45 seconds. You run one play. It's 3 seconds. Get you to 42. You run one more play. Get you to at least 39 seconds left. Guys, it would have been over. Now, overall, was the call a bad call? 100%. It was a horrible call. And the rule was not meant and for intent to, he begins to slide. I saw the one picture where they showed, okay, he technically starts to slow up just before the line to gain, but he's not sliding yet. He's just slowing his body down, and then he creates a slide a yard after the line to gain. So overall, though, and then you look at the Florida State game. Jordan Travis started his slide like 3 yards before the first down, and they called it a first down. So overall, 2 things can be correct. Was it a bad call? 110%. You can go back and look at that game 10, 15 times. It was a horrible call. But at the end of the day, it's 3rd down. Just get the first down. And on top of that, if I see one more punt that we can't get past at least 10 or 15 yards, I'm going to lose my mind. Love Caleb Junko. You got to punt the football, man. It's the one thing you do all practice. I mean, that's just like extremely frustrating. I thought we got past that. They had a quarterback competition with with Jeff Yerk, I thought we were past that. Man, Junko had, and I'm not trying to just pound one thing into the ground, but man, oh my God, I don't understand it. I really don't. It's tough to watch it. And I watched the game twice. I watched it twice, and I had to rewind it and watch it. And I did just by looking, okay, where does he really start to slide? Because I saw the two pictures. Well, no, he started to slide before the line of game. No, he's just slowing down. So by slowing down, the referee thought he saw it, and the referee's 10 yards back. So how the hell can you know exactly where he starts to slide? It's just ridiculous. Trey, already following you all, but all serious, Phil Longo is who you need. Phil Longo's up at Wisconsin now, Trey. I agree. Phil Longo would be pretty awesome, but he's not going to leave Wisconsin. I can tell you that. CD, my guy. Don't know what that means, but I'm glad you're watching, brother. I appreciate all your support. Should have run out of bounds, but that was a horrible call regardless. He clearly converted. Well, like me and you were on the same page. I couldn't agree more. Y'all having the same problems from Cignetti perspective that we're having with Brown. Trey, I know, man. Like, I mean, look, I never, when West Virginia, I can tell you this, when West Virginia first hired Neil Brown, I actually thought 100% that he was going to be the guy because he was a hot candidate when he got hired. But here we are 4.5 years in. West Virginia's never been ranked in the top 25. He's had, out of his 4 seasons, he had 3 losing seasons. The one winning season he had was during the COVID year with less games. And he's going to have a tough stretch here, man. I don't know if West Virginia beats UCF. They're not going to beat Oklahoma. Let's say if they lose both those games, they're at 5 losses. Then you got to go the rest of the season where it's up in the air. It's just there's a lot of parity in terms of the Big 12. It's not a very strong conference this year, but it's a lot of parity. Dude, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a tough season. But I just think that, and I'm a Pitt guy at heart, man. It's hard saying this. I think if West Virginia was smart, they get rid of him. But here's the thing: he's still owed $15 million. So I don't know if they get rid of him or not. The worst call I've seen was the Houston call, short line, 4th. Oh my God, yeah, I know. Trey, I watched that game. Went back and watched it. That was wild. Should have run out of bounds. Yeah, all right. Yeah, but we're on the same page there, Will. I mean, I just. When it's 3rd down, it's very different. If it's 2nd down or 1st down, you need to secure the first. You need to secure the 1st down. You have to. He thought he had it, but I mean the marker's right there. I mean he starts to slow up just before the line to gain, but it's just a slow up. He doesn't start to slide till after. But also, if you look at the roll, and let me see if I can pull up the roll here. I would like to see this. Let me see here. Yeah, so like here, it's funny when you look at the roll here, it even says the body part has to touch the ground. A body part has to touch the ground before anybody even touches him to consider that he's already down. And on top of that, when you look at the actual roll, the roll was to protect players. There was nobody around that guy. Okay. But the fact that it's completely 2 different things, the Florida State game, Jordan Travis starts to slide 5 yards before the actual down marker, and they called it a 1st down. And Christian Veyer doesn't start to slide till after half a yard after the line to gain. I mean, that's horseshit. And that's been an ACC thing since we've been here. It's just consistently bad calls. Consistently bad calls. Trey, I'll be honest with you. Who we have in NIL, we have got to go get a good coach, but he's owed $19 million. Oh, $19 million. Oh, shit. That's even worse. So I don't know if they're going to be able to get rid of him or not. Then $19 million is a lot of dough. Although Kenny Pickett was short of the line again, they're in the game there today. Yeah, he was really short. He looked short. I'm not going to lie, but hey, we got that dub, baby. That's all that matters. But overall, I mean, I just don't know what Pitt's going to do in terms of, they need to understand this is a hard loss to take because you lost to a bad Wake Forest team. 100%. You lost to a bad Wake Forest team, and you lost to a 3rd-string quarterback. And let's be honest, he really didn't do anything in terms of remotely practicing as a quarterback for, I want to say, he played safety, he played corner. I think he played running back at some points. I mean, that guy in no shape or way should have Pitt lost that game yesterday. And I know there's a bad call at the end, and people want to talk about the bad call, and I agree it's a bad call. But where was our offense for really 3.5 quarters? I mean, that's really the heartbreaking part is when you look at this team, there's a lot of talent on this team. There's a lot of talent that's going to be coming in. I think the wide receiver room, you're going to see guys like Lamar Seymour, Izzy Polk, and Zion Fowler really step up in the coming years to see what they really do. I really want to see how they continue to develop. And Kenny Johnson, there's going to be 4 wide receivers. I think Konate Mumph will be back next year. That's another guy. Day Reynolds should be back. I just think that it's got to be, at this point, you just got to continue to build that talent. But more importantly, you need an offensive coordinator that has a scheme that utilizes that talent. If you don't utilize that talent, you got issues. Also, too, the penalties have to stop. I talked about this in the beginning. The constant penalties, consistently, over and over and over again, need to stop. It needs to stop. Whether it's the flagrant penalties, whether it's guys lining up in the backfield, like for instance, if I hear one more time we're lined up wrong, there's too many men in the backfield, or illegal motion, or no matter what, I'm going to lose my mind. On top of, let's be honest too, the amount of penalties they get in terms of pulling guys off a pile or unsportsmanlike penalties. Heather Light talked about this a couple years ago and told Pat, like, that's gotta stop. I mean, eventually it's going to come back to bite you. And then it's case in point. They say Christian Vader, he's short of the line to gain. So we go to punt, and we finally, also we got a turnover with MJ Devonshire with an interception. We pull guys off. It's just like, oh man, you're so close, but you just continually just shoot yourself in the foot. I don't know what else I need to do. I commend you for watching the game twice. Yeah, Will, it was tough, buddy. I mean, watching that offense is brutal. This offense is unwatchable. Yes, it is unwatchable. It's extremely tough to watch. The best thing that can happen to Pitt, your head coach goes to Michigan State University. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm a hardcore guy in terms of I want Pat Narduzzi to stay because he does have a good defense. Whether people agree with that or not, he does. Our defense kept us in the game the entire time. He just needs to hire a good offensive coordinator. But what I can tell you is this: he is going to get interviewed by Michigan State. Mark D'Antonio is very much involved. I've talked about this on a couple different shows. I can tell you this: he's going to get interviewed. Mark D'Antonio is 100% involved with this hire. And just what people don't understand is this: they're going to say, "Well, how can Michigan State not get a better coach? How can Michigan State not do this? How can Michigan State not do that?" Michigan State's in a real problem. One, because of the consistent scandals that go on at that university is mind-blowing, which that turns off candidates. But also, too, a lot of people don't know this. Their NIL program, their NIL fund, the guy who started the whole thing up, he was a big-time billionaire, big-time donor. He didn't get enough subscription, so he shut it down. That's a real problem. That's a real problem. Okay? That's tough to watch. They're in a lot of trouble. Now, they're going to probably look at, and if I had to guess, to be honest with you, Steve, I do know they're going to interview him, and they're going to look really hard at him because here's what Pitt fans don't understand. He runs a clean program. He does. Whether people agree with that or not. He runs a very clean program, and he's always okay. Besides this 1 year and besides the 5 and 7 year, they're competitive. I mean, we were in the Coastal race every single year. We won an ACC championship game. We've been to the ACC championship game twice. Hell, that's more than Penn State in the past decade. And James Franklin, what he's going to go through and all the upheaval, and he's going to hear about losing to Ohio State again. Being in, what is he like? Just like 2-13 against top 10 teams. I mean, you just have, those are the type of questions you're asking yourself. And I think Michigan State needs a guy, and they know they need a guy who knows the Michigan State way and who knows how to win, where you can't maybe recruit at the highest level like Ohio State and Michigan and Penn State. You can't recruit that high level, but they need a guy who knows how to develop talent. I can tell you this: he can win there because he actually can develop talent. And I think when you go to a place like Michigan State, there's going to be a lot of say in who you're hiring, who you're not, what's the resources look like. And I think if he went back there, there's certain fans that look at me and they say, especially Michigan State fans, they're like, "Oh, well, I don't know. He kind of bashed us after the bowl game and said that if Kenny Pickett would have played, they would have beaten us." I mean, no offense, Michigan State fans, That's a fact. I mean, if Kenny Pickett plays, I mean, we're steamrolling you. Hell, if Nick Patty stayed healthy, we'd have won. But they know that Pat Narduzzi knows how to win there. And Mark D'Antonio would be very much involved. It's a fact. I mean, he would be, I'm just being honest, he would do really well there. I mean, he would have a lot of help. Now, the problem is, though, they're going to look at Pat Narduzzi. They're going to look at Tressel, who's over there. He's actually over at Wisconsin now as a defensive coordinator. They're going to look at him. Mike Tressel, he's there. There's a couple of different guys, too. I know they reached out. They reached out to that Lance Leipold, who's the head coach at Kansas. He's already said no because, one, that's just not a good job. It's not a good job for him to say, I'm going to make that jump and go to Michigan State, where I can't really help. One, when you look at the job overall, he can get that next step. The one guy that I think that if he really wants to make a jump, he could do it, but I think he's going to get a better job, is Mike Elko at Duke. Mike Elko is going to be a hot commodity coming up pretty soon. Does he take that Michigan State job? I don't know. Would he be very good there? Hell yeah, he would. But maybe I think he wants to go a little bit of a bigger job. I wouldn't be shocked if Mike Elko goes to the SEC, to be quite honest with you. He's got a lot of ties to the SEC. Will, Deuce has built a strong culture at Pitt. He needs to be more hands-on and building coaching talent on offense and keeping them around. Yeah, I agree, man. When you hear the comments from Pat about how he really spends most 80% of his time with the defensive staff, but that kind of tells you, and this is a very honest point, this is why he hires guys that are older, maybe older is a little bit harsh, but more experienced. Because basically what he wants to do is what Mark D'Antonio did, just hand off the offense and say, look, and that's why offensive coordinators, you're going to see, I mean, I've seen the names that come across who wants to interview at Pitt for their offensive coordinator positions. There's a lot of good names on that list. Just telling you right now. And like, for instance, if Joe Moorhead wasn't offered that head coaching job at Akron, Pitt would have hired Joe Moorhead. Just telling you guys that. It's a fact. He would have gotten the OC job here at Pitt. He wanted to be a head coach, wanted to give it one more go. It's close to home. It's an opportunity to be a head coach. That's why he took it. And I don't blame him. It's a head coaching job. But when you look at the offense, he wants to hand the keys over to an experienced offensive coordinator, a guy that he knows he can trust to run that offense. But as you can see, when you make a bad hire, you're stuck in the twilight zone, and just the offense looks like shit. Just calling it what it is. Arkansas recently fired Dan Enos. He was always a guy that was on that list potentially. To be honest with you, I don't ever believe he was ever a candidate. I know some people wanted to talk about that. He really never was a candidate. But Dan obviously got fired from Arkansas. Personally, me, I wouldn't mind letting go to Frank Zanetti and then letting Tim Salem call the plays. Just my opinion. Just let Tim Salem call the plays, give people hope on what it would look like, spark the team a little bit. Maybe something changes, but we'll see. Thanks, everyone. Would love Iowa D coordinator. Everyone would love the Iowa defensive coordinator. Oh, yeah, he's done a hell of a job at Iowa. They might score 15 points a game, but their defense is damn good. Iowa's sitting right now at 7-1, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. They're 6-1. I can't remember if they had a bye week or not yet. They're either 6-1 or 7-1, one or the other. But yeah, I mean, West Virginia would be smart to look after him. Also, West Virginia would be smart to look at Kurt Cignetti and Tony Gibson. Tony Gibson, defensive coordinator at NC State. Obviously, he was there with Rich Rod. That'd be a good hire, too. Longevity and culture may be underrated. Deuce has created culture. I am an AFA grad, and we have had 2 coaches in 40 years. Son is a Pitt sophomore. Like you said, Deuce is a clean program, culture, and stability. Oh, I think is the AFA or the Air Force Academy. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, Mark. I'd like to know. But, I mean, longevity and culture may be underrated. Yeah, I mean, dude, I'm just being honest. It's a hell of when you can build a strong culture. Go look at the transfers. The only guys that have ever transferred besides one, Jordan Addison, the rest of them are because they were looking for more playing time. I mean, is that not a great barometer to say, hey, they love it here. They're getting paid. Pitt pays their players. I mean, it's a Lions 4-1-2, which again, Chris Bickle, John Pelusi, Goldberg, they're all guys, all part of that. They're incredible. Our former players, LaShawn McCoy, Larry Fitzgerald, Aaron Donald, all these guys behind the scenes. I mean, Curtis Martin. I mean, all of them. Dion Lewis, all these guys are all recruiting for Pitt. I'm just telling you, they built a really close family culture, and it goes a long way. And I just truly believe if they hire a good coordinator next year, this is a one-year thing. This team has got talent. This team has talent, especially because it's young, too, especially on defense. You look at the linebacker room, Ryan Manilak, and by the way, Pitt fans need to hear this too. Ryan Manilak has recruited balls to the wall. Rasheem Biles going to be a hell of a linebacker. Jordan Bass going to be a hell of a linebacker. He's improved with a bunch of guys that are on that defense right now. Cam Lindsey from the hometown hero, the 4-star linebacker that's committed to Pitt. Don't be shocked if he plays right away at Pitt. That kid is a freight train. There's just something, like we always say, there's something in the water. There's something in the water at Aliquippa, man. He's going to get early playing time. It's Jordan Bass, Rasheem Biles, Kyle Lewis, Cam Lindsey. I mean, the names go on and on. So I saw with a dream backfield, which, that account kills me sometimes. He wants a 6'7" linebacker. I've never heard of that shit. I don't know. It's very different. But I can tell you this, that guy can recruit. He's recruiting very good linebackers that'll be good here in the future, which is a fact, and obviously Bengali Kamara. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And he's really stepped up what Bengali Kamara can be. But he's done a hell of a job recruiting, and that's a fact. Come on, ACC and Big Ten East are not comparable. Penn State goes undefeated in ACC. I don't know about that. I mean, Big Ten East, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, Penn State, I mean, they take care of business against every other team. I think Penn State would have one loss every year if they were facing Clemson. Because here's the thing, too. Say what you want about Clemson being down or whatnot. Clemson beats the brakes off of Michigan and Ohio State. Ohio State preferably in the college football playoff. Florida State would do the same exact thing. Just telling you. Penn State would be the same thing here, having one or two losses every single year. They would not go undefeated. Because the Big Ten can't even win a game in the college football playoff. Clemson's actually beating SEC teams in the college football playoff and beating them the brakes off of them, especially too when they beat Alabama by 30+ points. And they shut out Ohio State. The same year that Penn State lost to Ohio State, which is almost every year. What? Because Penn State's 1-9 now. Big Ten's can be a better conference now because they added USC, UCLA, Washington, and Oregon. But I mean, when it comes to big games, James Franklin ain't that guy. And I can tell you this, while James Franklin's at Penn State, they're never going to win a national championship. I think they can get into the college football playoff with those seven at-large bids, but they're never going to win that conference. Wait till Penn State faces Michigan coming up here soon. Michigan's going to wax Penn State. It's not even close. Penn State the offense for Penn State is absolutely horrendous. I mean, Drew Aller was like, I think when they looked at it, he was like 12 or like was he 14 of 43? I mean, he was barely over 40%. I mean, James Franklin's got a lot of work to do to try to catch Ohio State or Michigan. That's a fact. Oh, Iowa 6-2, lost to Minnesota. Shit, did they really lose? Wow. That's something. I thought they won at the end there. I'll have to catch the end of the game. Yes, Air Force Academy. Oh, that's pretty sweet. Well, that means, Mark, you're incredibly intelligent is what that means. And hardworking, especially go to the Air Force. That's incredible, and thank you. Coach Manilak has really acquitted himself as a linebacker coach since his first season. The guys he targets and recruits aren't just talented, they're developing under his tutelage. Yeah, well, that's why I dream backfield, the stuff that he says in terms of what the defense looks like. He wants like these 6'7", 300-pound linebackers all of a sudden. I have no idea what the hell he's talking about. Ryan Manilak has done a hell of a job recruiting that linebacker room. And all the talent's young. I mean, it's all coming back. So, I mean, I'm just being honest. Solomon DeShields is another guy that has stepped up. Bengali Kamara, Shane Simon has stepped up. Then Jordan Bass, Kyle Lewis, Rasheem Biles. Now Cameron Lindsey coming in. Who's the young kid from the 2024 class that's out of New Jersey? Kid's going to be a Mike. I can guarantee you he's a tough kid. If I can find it here. Let me see here. Yeah, Pitt's class ranked 32nd right now. Cameron Lindsey. Oh, yeah. Jeremiah Marshland, guys. He's recruited him. That kid is an absolute stud. I cannot wait till that kid gets here. Jeremiah, Adam, there you go. Bruton. Thank you. Thank you. Jeremiah Marshallin, guys. Let me tell you something. This kid is an absolute stud out of Florida. Um, he's going to be really, really good. Cameron Lindsay's going to be playing early. Jeremiah Marshallin, it's Pitt's got to hold on to him. He's going to be one of those ones that you have to watch. There's been a lot of conversation between Michigan State, Maryland. I think Maryland's recruiting him really hard, probably possibly the hardest right now. Miami's still recruiting him very, very hard. I'll have to see. For instance, if I can't remember if Miami got that linebacker recruit. That's why maybe they're not as recruiting him as hard now. But man, Miami, he went to a Miami game. Maryland's been recruiting him hard. I'm just telling you, he's going to be really good. But overall, you look at his class, man. That's why I'm saying it's really good. Yasin Willis, the running back, the 4-star running back. He's one of what? 2 running backs are going to be coming here. Jules Goff, the running back from Central PA, New York, PA. Tell you what, man, he broke all of his records at in his high school. I mean, the kid's a stud. I mean, Sincere Edwards, 4-star defensive end, 6'3". He can play inside or outside. He's going to be a hell of a player. Caleb Holmes, 4-star offensive lineman. He's going to be a stud. I mean, you look at the names. Nigel Maynard, defensive back. Mason Lindsay, another offensive lineman that's going to be really good for Pitt. A couple other names. Yeah, David Bruton. He's going to be a hell of a player. Let me see some names here. Oh, yeah, Francis Brew, defensive tackle from the Maryland area. I'm sorry, from the Ohio area. I'm sorry. Really good football player. It's going to be really, really good in terms of defensive tackle. And then Jasir Whittington, another 4-star defensive tackle. That's what I'm telling you guys. Supporting Alliance 412 is so important because they're getting these deals. And Pitt is so competitive in the market of what you're able to bring here. And then when you got guys like Aaron Donald, Larry Fitzgerald, LaShawn McCoy, Curtis Martin, I mean, these guys are recruiting for Pitt all the time. On top of the staff, the talent's there. And you get DeMar Hamlin helping, Dane Jackson, Jason Pinnock, Jordan Whitehead. Jordan Whitehead does a lot. James Conner. I mean, the names go on and on and on. You come to Pitt, you get developed, go to the National Football League. It's that simple. But the NIL is so competitive because of NIL and Alliance 412. If you join Alliance 412, it's going to the right stuff, man. That's why I did it. It's a no-brainer for me. I know you're not a WVU guy, but what's your status on Neil Brown? What would you do? Trey, I can tell you this right now. I would have fired the guy last year. And I know, West Virginia with their financials, their balance sheets, obviously they're so far in debt, and they made their major cuts to their programs and whatnot. I think it's going to hurt them with enrollment because enrollment's gone down 4 consecutive years. I actually just did an industry study at work. I'm in the financial sector in terms of banking and whatnot, and we do a whole portfolio. I can tell you this, man. Their enrollment has declined the past 4 years. It looks ugly. And then when you cut more programs, that's not helping. But they had to do it because they're losing money. But I can tell you this: if he's owed $19 million, which I still think it's less, I was pretty sure it was like 15. I thought it was 15. They got to find a way to get rid of him because he's not the guy. I think West Virginia, if Pitt had competent quarterback play, West Virginia scored 10 points off of a gaining 16 yards because of the turnovers by Pitt and Phil Dracovic. If Christian Vayer plays in that game, I don't think West Virginia gets those points, and Pitt possibly wins that game. I think there's been a couple games where you could say it could be shift maker games. Now, West Virginia, where now you're seeing the defense fall apart, you're facing better offenses than your Pitts or your Texas Techs, teams like that. You're getting caught up, and now he's really on the hot seat. He never really left, in my opinion. I think Ren Baker is a hell of an AD. I think West Virginia did a hell of a job hiring him. I do like him a lot. But this UCF game, I don't see them beating UCF in the bounce house. I don't. I think Garrett Green's going to be a stud. I think he continues to show and develop. He needs to continue to develop. I just don't know if it's going to happen under Neil Brown. I don't know if it is. But overall, when you look at this team, I mean, to be struggling this much, to be a 4-3, you've lost 2 in a row. That's kind of tough to watch. I mean, I just don't know. Me personally, it's got to go. I'd fire him, but buyout is big. Yeah, Adam, his buyout's big. So I just don't know if they can justify it, but if they can raise money for the funds to get it, then if they have enough money to fire him, I would. Because he's not the guy. He's never been ranked in the top 25. He's never been able to keep talent. Also, the transfer portal. West Virginia loses at least 20 different guys every single year. I mean, that's like the function of a program. I think he's got major issues there. I just think that, how could you not hire like a Tony Gibson or Kurt Signetti? You got different guys like that. Or you call Iowa, their defensive coordinator, like you had mentioned, Trey. I would do that in a heartbeat. Green is absolutely much better, and offense is much better since the defense has been a lot worse since the bye week. Yeah, I mean, it was rough early sledding for Garrett Green, but he's definitely gotten better. But now the offense is finally starting to score, but now the defense is falling apart. It's crazy to watch. How can you say they beat anyone when you can't beat Wake with CV? I mean, it's Steve. I agree. I mean, they could lose the rest of the games, but also too, what they beat Louisville, who's ranked 14th in the country. Anything's possible. They couldn't beat Cincinnati. They lost by a touchdown there, 6 points, but then they beat Louisville, who stomped the brakes off of Notre Dame. I mean, just being honest with you, Steve. I mean, I agree. Every game at this point is a toss-up. In my opinion, every game moving forward is a toss-up. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know which team's going to show up. I agree. The strength is absolutely their O-line, and that's all they have. C.J. Donaldson, ever since that game last year at Pitt, he hasn't done anything. Yeah, C.J. Donaldson, I don't think he'll be back. I think he's going to transfer. I think enough. I think West Virginia has enough backs to begin with. Their depth at Jaheim White, I like him a lot. I think he's a hell of a running back. They got one more, I know that, but I don't think he'll come back because he hasn't played very well, Trey. I just think it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for them to do anything. I'd be quite honest with you. But at the same time, though, I put on the replay of the West Virginia game. That stadium was empty. Milan Puskar Stadium was empty against Oklahoma State. What do you think that next home game is going to look like when they're going to UCF? If they lose to UCF, they're going to be 4-4. West Virginia is not beating Oklahoma. So then you're 4-5. Potentially, you're either 5-4 or 4-5, and then you come back home. That's a huge question mark. But you lose probably one of the better freshman linebacker with a broken leg, and lost probably one of the best safeties in the Aubrey Burks for 2 games. Yeah, I hear you. I mean, I hear what you're saying, but at the same time, though, Pitt's been dealing with the same stuff. You know what I mean? We've lost Matt Gonsalves, our best offensive lineman. Matt Gonsalves won't be back next year. He's going to the National Football League. We lost Jake Cradle for 2 or 3 games. We lost Bengali Kamara on the defensive side. Now we've lost Solomon DeShields. We lost Sean Fitzsimmons. We lost a running back. We lost Kanate Mumfield for a game. We lost Bob Means for a game. There's injuries all around. It's part of the game. It is what it is. But, I think Neil Brown has gotten decent football players. But my problem is, though, he's got to quit taking Group of 5 transfers. None of them play any well. They're not doing well. I just think he's having issues trying to get the extra talent in there. 54,000 for Oklahoma State. I don't agree with. There's no way. Maybe that was the number they put out there. There's no way. I mean, even the voice of Morgantown was saying it was empty, and he was at the game. Let me see here. What do we have? The recruiting staff. Guys, put your questions in here. So we're gonna be getting to that point. But I want to talk about one of these players on this recruiting trail. Nigel Maynard, Cameron Monterio, athlete. Yeah, he was really good. I don't want to talk about him though just yet. Yeah, Jeremiah Marshall, guys, linebacker, and then Mortiz Schmoranzer, who's an offensive lineman. He's a 3-star recruit, 6'5", 275. Guys, I really like this class coming in, man. I think that, hang on to these guys, which I expect them to do, because these freshmen now, it's all about, for instance, it's all about the money at this point. And Pitt's paying. And Pitt's done that for the last really 3 to 4 years, but now it's been turned up another notch. We've gone from here to here because there's been support from the fan base, but even the big donors, where now we're really starting to get aggressive. I can tell you like this. I mean, overall, continue support for Alliance 412. You're watching them jump and watching them be competitive in the market, especially with basketball. Basketball is the same way. But for football, especially, all this conference realignment stuff. Pitt was mentioned towards the Big Ten because they were looking at all the markets and bringing in, you brought Oregon, Washington, Cal, Stanford, Pitt, and then they had, I think they had Clemson, UNC, Virginia, and then Virginia Tech. And you were bringing them into the Big Ten. What that market looks like now will be interesting. But the ACC, I'm going to be doing a video later on about it. I've been told by numerous people that the ACC wants to add, once the legal issues are going on out in the Pac-12, once that's done, they want to add Washington State and Oregon State, and then the ACC wants to add West Virginia, Kansas, and TCU. TCU to go with in the Texas market with SMU being a good partner there. Obviously, then you have the Pac-12. The reasoning behind it is obviously Oregon State and Washington State being a pair with Stanford and Cal. And then you have, what was the last one? I had West Virginia because obviously in our market. In West Virginia, people can say what they want. West Virginia doesn't want to be dealing with the travel. I mean, look at the teams that the Big 12 has pulled in here. It's all West Coast teams. They're hoping by the end of like 2028 and 2029, they're hoping that the best thing that can happen to the Big 12 is that the ACC falls apart. But with them adding Stanford, Cal, SMU, and potentially now Oregon State and Washington State, the ACC is not going anywhere. And then the ACC is more valuable to begin with because of the ACC network and the CW. Pitt's now 2-5. They're on national television every single game. The Big 12, if you're not a primetime game, you're on ESPN Plus. Nobody has ESPN Plus. It's reassuring that NIL will keep this class mostly intact. The class would have started falling apart the season like this pre-NIL era. Yeah, I know, dude. Will, it's a fact. NIL is keeping this class together. That's why I'm telling you guys, you have to support Alliance 412. I'm just telling you. I mean, it's so critical to support them. And I know some people can make your own decision. If you want to, you don't. All I know is I'm going to do that. And I up my level because, one, I know what Alliance 412 is doing. I know what they're doing behind the scenes. These guys love what they're doing in terms of building their brand and getting more money involved with the program. I'm just telling you, they're getting paid. I mean, it's a fact. Been hearing a lot of rumors that Pitt is looking at the Big 12 as the ACC looking at WVU. I can tell you this, Trey, the Pitt is not looking at the Big 12. Like not even a little bit. I mean, it's like for them to look at the Big 12, the ACC would have to completely fall apart, which it's not. I think in retrospect, I actually see the ACC poaching the Big 12 and roughly, I want to say the deal for the Big 12 is up in like 2029, 2030. Don't be shocked if you start seeing movement here in probably like about 3 or 4 years. I would say about 2027, 2028, because the ACC and ESPN has the ACC network and the CW as national media partners. You're on national television every single game. Also, too, the Big 12, their issues, the Big 12 is going to have an issue when Fox backs out and says, hey, look, we're done supporting the Big 12. Fox is going to start using that money to try to get more teams into the Big 12. That deal is going to start coming along pretty soon. Me personally, I want WVU in the ACC because it's a great rivalry game, and I want a conference rivalry game. It means more too. And just one, it's our closest. It's really one of our closest rivals besides Penn State. It's just a fact. I think, and personally too, West Virginia would save a ton of money being in the ACC than they would be being in the Big 12. Also too, long term, the ACC media rights deal is the third best deal. It's not. It's a fact. They're not going to be able to make as much money long term, especially down the road in terms of the length of it. Now, obviously, Big 12 people will say, well, the Big 12 can renegotiate and get more money in the next deal. What makes you think that the Big 12, the way that the football conference looks right now, the Big 12 is not a football conference? I'm sorry to break that to you. It's not a very good conference. They're struggling this year. And then you're going to have Texas and Oklahoma lead, your two biggest brands in terms of viewership, in terms of winning the college football playoff, and they're going to get more money? Yeah, I don't think so. I can tell you this right now. If you ask behind closed doors, Ren Baker, G. Gordon, all them guys, where they want to go, in which conference, they were begged to be in the ACC because the travel would be better. They have more rivals with Pitt and Virginia Tech, and there's more teams like them. But more importantly, there's more teams around them to where they're not traveling as much, and they would save a ton of money and still make more money in terms of the media rights deal. Just being honest. West Virginia makes more sense in the ACC than Pitt to the Big 12. Academics is the main drawback. No disrespect to WVU. Yeah, well, they got declined because of the academics, but it's not about that anymore. It's all about viewership. And West Virginia and Pitt draw a ton. I mean, even this past year, it was a low scoring game. We still averaged 3.2, 3.3 million viewers for the game. Last year at Acrisure, we had 4 million. I think it was like 4.1 million viewers. It's an attraction. It draws a lot of eyeballs. It is what it is. And I just think that when you look at it overall, I just think West Virginia brings. I think they bring good. I mean, in the ACC especially, I think they'd be better, and they're spending less money. The traveling. I mean, they added Colorado, Utah, Arizona State. You're traveling to all those schools. Good luck with that. Good luck with it. It's not going to work. How long after the season will Cignetti be fired as we'll be looking for a new candidate? Adam, I would say roughly 2 to 3 weeks. That's it. Yeah, he's gone. He's a goner. Aaron Hernandez gone forever. That's a fact. Pitt is missing out on the best in the city. And until they start getting better in PA recruiting, they are not going to be a 7-8 win team, sometimes 9 and 10. I mean, Steve, under Narduzzi, besides now 2 seasons and his 9 years at Pitt, he's had 8 or more wins. And then 1 year he had 7. He was 7 and 5. So if he's, and then that's back then, he was recruiting at that level. I mean, he's clearly doing something right. Besides the offensive coordinator hire, he's doing something right. So I don't see an issue with that, especially too next year. If they hire a good offensive coordinator, a competent, like actual college football offensive coordinator, I guarantee you they win 8 to 10 games next year, including the bowl game. Being honest. And especially in PA, they do get PA recruits. They didn't get a couple guys or some more stuff behind the scenes. Penn State obviously got the kid. I'm drawing a blank on the linebacker from Central Catholic. Good kid. I can't remember the kid's name. I'm drawing a blank all of a sudden. Very good kid. He's going to be a linebacker at Penn State. Tyke from 2020 the 2025 class. He's going there. Obviously, Peter Gonzalez going up to Penn State, the wide receiver. I think he'll be good. But besides that, there's like 3 or 4 guys. Specca. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Steven Specca. They're going to Penn State, which is fine. And obviously Pitt got Cam Lindsey. Previous years, they got an Elliott Donald. They've got numerous different guys, like Kai Johnson, Dorian Ford, all these guys. So, and at the end of the day, PA is not a massive draw in terms of prospective talent. I'm actually going to do a show with PA today to talk about the current players that will be joining potentially in the next recruiting classes. I'm going to have him on the show to talk to Pitt fans about guys they should be looking for in the WPIAL and City League. I think the City League is so talented in terms of that, though. I love what comes out of the City League. I think they're tough players, Division I players for sure. But you look at the talent from previous years to now, it's gone down. So Pitt's doing a good job by recruiting Virginia, Georgia, Florida, Texas. I know they're doing a good job. The Carolinas, the D.C. area. Obviously, you go through the D.C. area and the Virginia area, you look at some really good schools and some legacy schools. Mason Lindsay, where's he from? Why am I drawing a blank on the high school? It's DeMatha Catholic. We got John Morgan out of there. DeMatha Catholic. You got plenty of different schools. If you lose out on some guys in PA, it's not going to be a killer, but it's good to keep those guys home. We'll see what they do, though. Trey, WVU needs out right now at ACC, and Gordon needs out as president, but Ren Baker was a very good hire. Yeah, Trey. WVU needs to get into the ACC, to be honest with you. It's going to save them money in the long term. Gordon Gee does need out. Trey, he has been horrendous the last 5 years. And I think if you ask Kuz that, he would agree. Gordon Gee, he just needs to retire at this point. I don't think he's very good. But Ren Baker is going to be there for the long term. If they keep him, if they keep paying him, he's a good guy, man. He's a good AD. Just make sure you stick with him, and he'll make the right guy. And wait till you see who he hires. Pitt's down year has so much to do with coaching and talent. So I don't know what this talk about PA recruiting holding us back is about. Yeah, Will, I'm going to be honest with you. I agree. It's just coaching. And in my opinion, I really do see, I really do see Pitt bouncing back next year. And I don't see Signetti coming back. I don't see Andre Powell coming back, and I don't see Dave Borbley. I think Dave Borbley's going to retire. If I really had to put a bank on it, I think he's going to retire. There are different. There was at least 3 or 4 different NFL offensive line coaches that interviewed last time. I expect the same thing again. But we'll continue. We'll continue to see what that looks like. Also, another guy that I wanted to take a look at in terms of the OC hire. A guy to look for, Luke Getsy. Luke Getsy from the Chicago Bears. If that staff falls apart, he was just behind Signetti and Moorhead from the last time. But obviously, he was already going to the Bears, so he was not going to go to college, especially at Pitt. I mean, he's not going to do that. But what I can tell you is this: he's going to be a guy that gets interviewed, and he was very much interested in the OC job at Pitt. So Luke Getsy is going to be another name. Obviously, a Munhall kid, played at Pitt. Look for him to get that to get a hire as well and potentially an interview. All right, let's see here. Adam, Florida recruits over WPIAL recruits. To an extent, yeah, there's certain. I'll take the Florida recruits because one, they're hella talented down there. But let me tell you something. There are some damn good players in the WPIAL. I would say about maybe 4 to 5 every single year. Got to find a way to get those guys. You know, like the Derek Davises, the Donovan McMillans who ended up coming back. You got to find a way to get those guys. You know, I think it works out in the end. MJ Devonshire came back. They're doing a good job in that department. Pitt's never going to get every single player. When you're looking at Ohio State, like Cole Sullivan, linebacker at Michigan, he picked Michigan, linebacker at Central Catholic. He picked Michigan over Pitt and Penn State. He didn't want to go to Penn State either. You're just going to miss out on guys like that sometimes. And I guess like too, like the Heinisch brothers, they went to Notre Dame. You're going to deal with that. I think if you look at the whole entire recruiting process, you want to get a decent amount of them. You're never going to get all of them. Pitt will never get all of them. I can tell you that right now. So any idea of that possibly happening is never going to happen. But I can tell you the guys they do get are good football players who produce, and the hometown heroes always perform here. They do a good job. Be honest with you, this all started with Shane Lyons and the hire of Neil Brown, the only good hire he had, our women's coach down, who left after year 1. Yeah, I know. I did see that. Shane Lyons giving Neil Brown a contract extension up to 2020 was mind-blowing. I think that was horrible. And that's really what's really put West Virginia in a hole right now, which I think potentially has them really holding on to Brown for one more year, which is going to suck because West Virginia is going to have a losing record again. Neil Brown's just not the guy. It is what it is. Does Getsy want to coach at the college level, though? Yeah. I mean, if he could have look, if he can be an offensive coordinator in the NFL, he's going to take the NFL all day. But he was an offensive coordinator with Joe Moorhead at Mississippi State. He wanted that job. The same thing at the college level. He wants to be an offensive coordinator. He does not want to be a position coach. And if he can't get it, if the Bears let go of if they fire their head coach, they're all going to go. And let's say he's here for 2 or 3 years. I think he's a good coordinator, man. I think he would do a good job here. That's just my opinion. And he would certainly take it. Getting all the top Western PA talent would be nice, but there's guys that replace them from way out of the state are really good, and we can get some better Western PA guys back in the portal anyways. Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of what's going on at this point, and you're seeing that between different guys that we're able to get. They end up coming back, and they perform really well. Donovan McMillan, besides the couple penalties he had the last game, he's been a home run man. He's done a hell of a job. MJ Devonshire, he went from a guy that was at Kentucky, potentially, a bust as they considered it out there. He comes back home to Pittsburgh, plays in the Pat Narduzzi defense. He's a day 1 or day 2 pick now. That's a fact. MJ Devonshire will be playing in the National Football League, and he will be very productive for years, 5, 10, 15 years. He's that good. Lengthy, speed, aggressive, your prototypical NFL corner. It's absolutely unfortunate because Neil Brown does everything really good except for doing the main thing, winning. Yeah, he's a good guy. Everything I've heard about the guy. He's a really good dude, does everything right, culture, everything like that. He just can't run a program. Me personally, I think he's just an offensive coordinator. If you look at it from perspective, he's an offensive coordinator. That's it. Some guys are just like that, and I think there's a number of coaches that are like that. I think Manny Diaz is one of those guys. I think Manny Diaz isn't a head coach; he's a defensive coordinator. Manny Diaz is doing a hell of a job at Penn State. It's just who they are. I just think that when you look at him you look at Neil Brown, he's running a good offense now. I mean, they're scoring points, but just the overall schematics of the team, he's just not doing it. He's an offensive coordinator, not a head coach. And West Virginia needs to find a head coach if they want to stay competitive and not fall to the bottom of the Big 12. You had me sold on Moorhead. Great family guy, which is perfect for the culture. Great route concepts, mix of run and pass. I don't know about recruiting. I mean, I can tell you this, brother. He was able to recruit at Fordham, at Penn State, and at Oregon. Any place, and at Mississippi State. You know, I just think that Moorhead is a really good OC at the Power 5 level. That's just my opinion. And guess what? Any place he's been to, they were able to run the football very effectively and be able to pass it. That's why I am so. If Pitt got Joe Moorhead, that's a home run hire. That's a Pitt guy from thick and thin. It's a home run hire. Neil Brown, Pitt next pick to see. Please don't be bringing any more West Virginia people. Still very pissed that then ran out Vic Koenig. Yeah, that wasn't a good thing either, Trey. I agree. Will, would you trade Cignetti for Brown? LOL. Yes, we would. Trey, I'm not going to lie to you. We probably would at this point. I'm not going to lie. I think anybody's probably better than Frank Cignetti. All right, guys. Again, please subscribe to the channel down below, guys. Please subscribe to the channel. Share this video with your friends. I recorded it. That way everybody can see it, the questions, the conversations that we had today. The channel is great because of you guys. And again, I can't thank you guys for the incredible questions. The guys and everybody joining the channel. We had over 65 people just in real live time watching the channel. So thank you guys. Please, again, share the video, like the video, comment down below what you thought. What did I miss? What did we get to? What didn't we get to? Did you like the live stream? But more importantly, share the video with everybody while you are subscribing. Guys, thank you again for everything you do. The channel is growing at a rapid rate because of you and for everything that you guys do for the channel and for me. It makes it so much fun. Truly love you guys and cannot thank you enough for the continuous support of Talking College Football with JJ Kitchen. Guys, until next time, hail to Pitt, and more importantly, forever and always. I'll see you guys soon.